Warning. Listening to this show may result in increased levels of inspiration, motivation, and innovation. Side effects can include the immediate urge to take massive action to build a better business and life for yourself and others. You've been warned. Welcome to Influencers Radio with your host, Jack Mize.
And welcome back to another episode of Influencers Radio. You know, there are so many private schools that are great at what they do when it comes to serving their students and the community. The heads of these schools, they have so many areas of responsibility in their leadership roles that when it comes to the special financial concerns that these organizations have, like financial aid, tuition cost, preparing and managing school budgets, you know, they can often get neglected or lost in the traditional basic small business bookkeeping models. And without having an in-depth analysis of the school's unique finances, quality institutions can face some devastating financial surprises. Well, my guest today is entrepreneur and owner of Optimal CFO, Loie Watkins. As a virtual CFO and accountant, Loie is most passionate about helping private schools, churches, and small businesses to balance the books and stay on top of their finances. Well, today we're going to be talking about how her business specializes in partnering with private schools to manage their accounting and financial operations so they thrive, prosper, and fully carry out their missions. Loie, welcome to Influencers Radio.
Hi, Jack. Thank you for having me on today.
Well, you know, I appreciate you coming on because, you know, you hear about private schools, a lot of these institutions in the news, and it's almost never about kind of some of the hardships, or I'd say some of the struggles that they have behind the scenes into creating these, quality institutions, places for families that choose to put their children and to look for that special guidance and learning. That I think this is something that would be a good thing to put a spotlight on it and also talk about some of the solutions that are out there. So what I'd like to do is kick this off and ask you to, describe some of those unique financial concerns that are facing private schools that a lot of people may not think about.
Sure. There are so many things and issues that private schools face because they are funded by tuition from families. And so private schools have to juggle and deal with managing on a limited, tight budget. And they're having to provide salaries for professionals, for teachers, faculty, also professional development, ensuring that their buildings and campuses have enhancements as well as technology, especially during this time where many schools are facing virtual learning and technology has become such a key component. Many schools face the high demand of financial aid so that tuition is affordable for families, as well as juggling enrollment and maintaining a stable financial position. So there is a lot of financial matters that heads of schools face.
Well, I can imagine. And then you throw in the fundraising and things like that on top of it. There's a lot to keep an eye on, and I bet a lot of that stuff isn't just come with your standard QuickBook modules. Like I talked about at the top of the show, that when they try to apply this and plug this into some traditional, bookkeeping, I can see where a lot of this it gets lost. One thing that you talked about, having to manage some of these tight budgets. When people think about small businesses cash flow, is always one of the first things that comes up is to dealing with cash flow, because they say, that can make or break a business.
Right.
How would you say that applies to private schools? Is it the same type of issue of cash flow? Is it more important, or what are they dealing with on that side of it?
Absolutely. It certainly is important and key and critical, because schools do not want to incur a deficit because they want to be able to operate and carry out their mission. And so cash flow is such a key issue for private schools to monitor and track, because it's a powerful tool that can be used when a school knows its cash position, whether it's positive or negative. They can anticipate how much cash is needed so that they can have a plan for operating, as well as implement solutions before any shortfalls in cash occurs. And so they also have the ability to look at other cash accounts that they may have, such as the endowment portfolio, and how that can be a resource for their financial needs.
But I guess in order to take advantage of that, they have to be able to see a snapshot of that. I guess that's what it comes down to, is to see a snapshot. And that's where I guess a lot of the traditional, small business accounting models may not provide that, like we said, the in-depth analysis that they need to be able to, project some of those obstacles that may be coming down the road. Can you talk about that? And when we say in-depth analysis of these special concerns, what does that look like? What is it that they're often making mistakes with, or that they're missing, that you kind of fill in the blanks for them?
Well, I love when you said having that snapshot. So it begins there, just having an analysis or a report so that you are knowledgeable about the cash position, looking or reviewing bank statements for one, checking the cash balances to see how the cash is flowing, or the activity, what's coming in, what's going out. What are some areas that may be overspending, and how that can be improved, and then estimating how the cash is flowing so that you can make plans and identify ways to implement solutions for that cash.
And is that something that you actually go into? Because the one thing that really impressed me about you is that it's not, you're not just calculating, right? You're not just putting the numbers in different columns and in order, that you actually do help with solutions. And this is probably fairly unique with private schools, because unlike a small business where you say, well, we need to generate some more revenue, or we need to do this, private schools can't say, well, let's have a sale, right? They can't say, let's have a special promotion, or can they? Can you go into that on some of these solutions that you can suggest once you are able to see that snapshot and see where there may be problems or opportunities?
Sure. I am a firm believer that the numbers tell the story. They really provide you with the insights of how the finances are for the school, so that you're able to measure and gauge the financial position. And so you want to know how your school is performing. And then one of the things is that tuition in the majority of schools, tuition does not completely cover operating costs. And so many schools are faced with a gap. And the ways to close that gap is through supplemental income, such as fundraisers, donations, grants. And so that is a key component as well for heads of school when it comes to finances. And so that's why establishing relationships and raising awareness for the private schools so that the community knows how this school is enhancing learning and education for students. And there may be certain special learning or different styles of learning that students may have, such as dyslexia or other tools where private schools are focusing and giving attention to that.
So that's okay. So they're specializing in areas that may be, underserved or just not available in public schools. That is, one of the reasons that would drive a particular type of student to those schools. Correct.
Correct. Yes.
Well, that does definitely, because I think a lot of people don't realize, the private schools, a lot of them, they're not just a place for people with money to send their kids. There's a lot of times that they benefit the community as a whole and not just the students. And I guess one of those things, when you talk about how they can serve some of these special needs that are underserved, and how deep do you get into that? Because like we talked about, the numbers tell the story, and then how can you turn that into solutions for them?
Right. So when you present the numbers and tell the story, it helps to really support and show how that private school is carrying out its mission, whether it's for special learning or it could be learning specifically for boys or all girls school, certain type of settings or platforms that these schools have for students.
I got you. So, do you get involved in suggesting, fundraisers or things like that, or how to best allocate or to set those up?
Yes, I do. From a financial perspective, I am involved. There are also other team members, such as your director of development, plays a key role in that, in the many ways of fundraising.
And so, I guess a lot of people, when they see fundraisers happen, it's probably one of the oldest that I hear from accountants all the time. It's easy to count other people's money, right? And so,
right.
So people, see all these schools, another fundraiser. Oh, look at the price of that tuition. They got to be swimming in the cash. But I think, I'm certain that is so intimately involved in the finances of these businesses that there's a lot of businesses that appear to generate a lot of revenue, but mismanaging it or not understanding it can cause some big problems. And I guess that comes down to, the term would be financial stability, right, of a company. And financial stability doesn't necessarily equate in revenue, how much revenue is coming in. Can you kind of define financial stability for private schools and the special considerations around that?
Sure. And I like what you said, that having revenue does not equate to financial stability, because financial stability is a long-term position. It's having or ensuring that your school has the income to operate, that costs are fully covered, that the finances are on track, that the cash is flexible. You're not restrained or tight and unable to pay bills or meet the needs for the school. And so financial stability plays a key role in determining how sustainable your private school will be in years to come, so that you can continue serving students, continue carrying out the mission to serve students.
Well, yeah, and I guess that's where, having someone that truly understands the numbers and can get a real snapshot of the numbers can make a huge difference. So a lot of time when you go to work with one of these schools, what is the situation that you is there a common situation that you are walking into? Because I'm sure it's not like they just like open up a checkbook and say, here's our checkbook register. They have some form of bookkeeping. What does that look like? Is it typically kind of a generic bookkeeping model where they may be missing, even though the numbers may be there, they're actually missing, what those numbers mean or attributes to those numbers, and what are you looking for to see where things can be improved?
Yes, many of the schools that I have encountered, they lack the in-depth analysis, especially for key issues or key financial matters such as financial aid, tuition revenue, enrollment, operating costs, not having the in-depth analysis so that heads as well as finance committees of the board are able to make instrumental decisions as well as effective decisions. And so many just have basic bookkeeping reports where there's just numbers. It may seem like numbers are floating everywhere, but it's not really providing the analysis and snapshot of the financial position of the private school.
I think that's key for everyone, because I think a lot of people use that term, their books or I guess more specifically the word budget, kind of loosely. And a lot of people, when they refer to their budget, what they really are referring to is a list of bills that have to be paid, right? And not necessarily an allocation. Do you find that? I guess it's the equivalent of an individual kind of living paycheck to paycheck. What do I got to pay this? Well, let's see if we have it, and let's have it without any consideration of what's coming next, or what do we need to set aside for this, typically down period of the year. Do you see that as being the case? That's more of just a worry list versus a true budget and financial plan?
Exactly. You said it perfectly. That it does not allow you to plan and to really gain the insights so that the school can think into the future, plan into the future, and progressively move forward, and as well as prioritize what's important to that school's mission so that they're able to manage the finances properly. I think the key word is it helps a private school leader to be proactive in making decisions versus reactive, just responding to what comes along, but able to implement strategies and solutions so that their private school is progressing forward.
Well, I think you said something there that I want to put a spotlight on, and I don't want to be lost in that, being proactive versus reactive. And I think that's probably one of the biggest issues, that if a lot of organizations, not just schools, but any business were to be honest with themselves, they would probably find them that they're more reactive than proactive. And I guess, we can talk about the problem, identify the problem, but really when it comes to a solution, what kind of solutions do you see? I guess we're talking about accounting software, even, when we talk about just the traditional, QuickBooks that a small business uses. Mm-hmm. Is there special accounting software that you suggest or recommend, or is it kind of the QuickBooks then that you maybe make customizations to or set up a very specific way? Can you go deeper into that?
Yes, certainly QuickBooks can be used in addition to a school tuition management system where families have a portal where they can make online payments. And that really helps with the cash flow with schools. They're able to obtain payments, not having to chase down collecting tuition payments or payments being delayed, as well as just having a portal where they can manage the accounting, retrieve financial reports. It's just all held into that database. And I remember a time specifically working with a private school, especially most recently during the pandemic, where we all experienced a shutdown and a lockdown for, if not a few weeks, over a month, and where operations had to go virtual. And so having online or remote technology allowed for the accounting to continue where it was not disruptive, where bills could be paid online, transactions could still continue. There was no interruption with tuition payments being received because you had the capability of the online access.
Now, I know to a lot of people, just the thought of that sounds overwhelming in putting something like that into place. Is that something that your company does that can handle, front to back, top to bottom, so that they don't necessarily have to turn into the tech whizzes, or is it something that you do and then you can take over, or that you can train staff to do it? What's generally the procedures for that? Because I know that right there, people are like, oh gosh, a new system, that's going to be tough to find time for.
Right. Generally, I work with systems that are already in place. I do not believe in reinventing the wheel. So if a private school already has an accounting software that's in place, as well as a tuition system that's in place, or even with their banking, if they have accessibility for online banking, certainly continue using that. Or if you have these programs, but I will recommend switching to the online platform or version of that so that you're not having to be limited or restricted to a desktop, because you really need to have access to these so that the process is streamlined and seamless, and it really saves time out of the workday.
Yeah, well, and I can imagine. I mean, it's just part of the evolution of some of this stuff. The days of the pencil, paper, and calculator are probably long gone when it comes to that. But I think that's good news for a lot of businesses that they have something in place, because I know they always dread hearing someone coming in and saying, no, scrap that. You need this now. But the fact that you can work with something like that, I'm sure is a huge relief to a lot of folks in the schools, that they're not going to have to upend what they're doing. So I guess, one of the things that I want to talk about is, you're called a virtual CFO. So let's talk about the virtual part of that. If a school wants to engage with you in doing that, how does that come into play with the virtual CFO? So I'm assuming that you're not looking to become a CFO of that school and park yourself in a desk there, right? You're going to handle a lot of this stuff remotely or virtually. Is it something that they engage with you weekly, monthly, or how does that work?
Right. So you expressed it so well. It is virtual, which means, and as we talked about previously with online or online accounting software, or it really helps to support the virtual, where you can give access to myself for virtual, as a virtual CFO, to have remote access into the accounting record. I'm able to see within the portal or the books, and able to analyze, produce reports, not necessarily having to come into an office setting daily or on a day-to-day basis to do the work, but the work can be done within the access of an online platform. And so certainly I definitely meet every month at the least with private schools or with the private school leader to review the financial data that occurred, to explain, to listen to what's happening, the plans, the vision, the mission that the head of school has, and to share solutions and strategies to provide guidance and recommendation as a CFO for that private school.
So it's kind of a win-win. It's not that they may still have their on-site person that handles the day-to-day issues with the maybe some of the financing or dealing with the parents when it comes to tuition issues or things like that. But you kind of orchestrate the machine behind it, I guess. Would that be an accurate way to describe it?
Yes, as well as able to handle a lot of the accounting and finance tasks. Probably one that comes to mind that would have to be continued in the office setting would be for checks, depositing checks at the bank, at the local bank, which in this day and age, again, with technology, many payments are received online or electronically. So a lot of your transactions are minimal in that regard, and very well can follow up with families in a variety of ways through email communication, phone calls. So there are so many options where the operations can continue from a virtual perspective.
I think this concept can be fairly new for a lot of folks with the virtual CFO, and you're certainly someone that is really refined that skill. Yeah. and with the relationships with these schools, and I know that you've been in accounting and finance for over 21 years. And I know you've worked as a corporate accountant, even for an international company. You worked with the nonprofits as finance director. What is it that really fueled your passion to work and specialize with the private schools?
I would say for two reasons, maybe even three, but one, I discovered along my journey that that I am most passionate about working with nonprofits. I really feel like I can contribute and support a cause, and in this case, the cause being education. And education means so much in so many capacities. When you think about a child's future being developed and formed, that's just so inspiring, in how they are given the capability to be whatever they want to be or aspire to be in regards to a career path. You know, education is the foundation for that. And so along my journey with working with nonprofits, and then specifically as a former finance director in a private school, that really helped me to connect with my passion in serving private schools.
Well, you can certainly tell that you have a passion for this, because the nuances involved in this, it really is, I think, a lot more than a lot of people think, and for you to take the time and really go in depth into understanding this, I think it says a lot. And I think just the financial peace of mind and security that you could provide to some of these schools is just tremendous. So let's talk about some tactical. If a school they're finding themselves in this situation, they find themselves, they really need to get our heads around our finances and our bookkeeping. So what does it look like with a school that they contact you and want to talk to you about engaging with them? How does that go? Do you meet with them, and how far do you go into their finances, or what's that first kind of overview when you're meeting with someone that's interested in what you're providing?
Yes, I absolutely would be delighted to connect with a private school to help them with their accounting needs, to discuss what their accounting needs are in a complimentary optimal accounting consultation, and where I will listen to the private school's challenges, financial challenges. I give my recommendations during this consultation, and then they can schedule a consultation on the website, which is theoptimalcfo.com. They can learn more about me, learn more about the services, how to get started and connect. So once the consultation is scheduled and taking place, and we learn I learn about the accounting needs of the school and give recommendations, then we can begin a plan and a path to working together.
Well, Loie, I have to thank you for coming on and sharing this today, because there's a lot that goes on, behind the scenes with private schools, and like we talked about, they do far more than just for their students. They really are a lot of times so important to the community as well. And I think having someone like you that has the interest, has the passion in their specific needs is a tremendous advantage for their school and their students and their students' families. So thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a privilege, and I just look forward to making an impact and making a difference for private schools.
Well, and you certainly have done that, and I'm sure will continue to do that. And it's one of the reasons that I can consider you an influencer. So, folks, definitely check out Loie Watkins. Check out the Optimal CFO. That's TheOptimalCFO.com. And we'll have a link to that there on the show post, along with ways that you can connect with Loie on social media, and definitely check out her YouTube channel. We'll have the link to that as well. Until next time on Influencers Radio, remember, you are the only real game changer.
You've been listening to Influencers Radio. To get all past shows and updates on future shows, visit influencersradio.com today.